What a jam that is, by the way. Welcome back, Conspiracy Theory. It's me. It's not DDP. It's me. It's the GOAT David Campbell. And I can't wait to get into it. This is March's installment of the Conspiracy Theory, the show where I give the only opinion that matters in the world of professional wrestling. That is right. My opinion and the opinion of my guest, who will be coming up very soon. Don't forget to check out the feature show over at Eat, Sleep, Suplex, Retweet. The gang did a great show on Edge. It was fantastic. Go and check that one out. Go and check out Central. Sarah Grieve was hosting this week. They talk about a whole number of things, including a topic that we're going to cover in more detail today. But before I do that, let me introduce you to my co-host. He is our Lord and Saviour. Mr. Stephen Wilson is here. Stephen, how are you?
Oh, I'm good, David. How are you?
I am fantastic. I can't wait to get into what we're talking about today. And it is the 2021 Hall of Fame. We're told by a very tearful Hurricane. He cried quite a bit. I was like, oh, come on, spit it out. You know what I mean? I know she's your pal. I know it's emotional, but get to it. You know what I mean? She cried less. She was less emotional. But she was put under pressure, like, I need to match the Hurricane now. You know? He stole the limelight. The question I have for you kicking off is, first, she's the first member of the 2021 class of the Hall of Fame. Were you surprised they were going to put more people in this year, considering we already knew they were going to induct the 2020 class before this WrestleMania?
I thought they were going to just do last year's this year as well, make it like a joint yearly thing, 2020, 2021 one. So the fact they're now going to do, an expanded class is an interesting one. But to be fair, it's not the first time they've done a big class. They did it in 2004.
Yeah.
But that was because they didn't have the Hall of Fame for 8 years, to be fair. Yeah. So the fact that they've had 2 years gap, you can maybe justify it slightly, but I'll be interested to see who they actually go for.
Well, it's interesting when this conversation came up in the chat. I think it was Ross who said, we're running out of people to put in the Hall of Fame. You should have used this as an excuse to slow it down a wee bit. But we're going to prove that's not necessarily true, Stephen, because what we're going to do in the Conspiracy Theory, we're going to give our shouts as to who should go in the Hall of Fame. And we don't care what anyone else thinks about it, because these are our picks. This is here we are putting in the Hall of Fame. And Stephen, you're going to kick us off. Who is your first pick to go in with Molly Holly in the 2021 class?
Oh, I'm going to go with somebody who was very popular during his time in the company. Very short reign he had in the company, actually, if you actually look back in history. But a guy who pretty much did everything, and he was there, Intercontinental, European champion, hardcore champion, tag team champion, ECW champion, world champion. So much. He was even the TNA champion, but less about that. I'm going to go with Mr. Monday Night himself, the whole effing show, Rob Van Dam.
Love it. I was love it.
I was trying to think. I was thinking of at a point, like, who could they plausibly get in? Because going into the season, if I had to pick people to go in, most of them have now joined AEW.
That's true.
Kind of like, who the hell is?
Who's left?
I'm going through names. I'm going through names like Vicky Guerrero. No, AEW. AEW. I was like, oh, for God's sake. So it's actually a lot harder than I thought.
And Sarah said in this week's show, like, this was probably Christian's year before he decided to jump ship.
It's like, he's in the Rumble, right? Cool. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame, or he's going to do something.
Yeah.
Well, he is doing something. He's just
not the
Kenny Omega up.
That's mental, by the way. That is for the world title. But I think you bring up at such a good point with RVD. Like, I've well documented 2006 was the year I started watching. So I was exposed to RVD as like a main eventer in WWE from like first watching it. And don't tell me if I'm wrong, but he's probably one of the only like WWE champions who's retired, who's not yet in the Hall. Would you say?
I would say so. That the thing when I remember watching Rob Van Dam for the first time in 2001 during the Invasion angle.
Yeah. And
I think one of the best things about it was at the start of that, he came in, he was a bit of a lower card guy in the whole thing. They had him feuding with Jeff Hardy for the hardcore title, but he built momentum so well. Yeah. And by the time we got to October, he was in a triple threat for the world title against Kurt Angle and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. In the space of 3 to 4 months, he's established himself as a top guy.
Yeah.
So I think the only downside of his career was his point as the top guy.
Yes.
Was so short.
Yeah.
You know, let's be honest. It was his own bloody fault.
It was his own fault.
But
it was like you say, it was a cup of coffee in the main event for him, but his popularity endured, you know, for years, even years after he left WWE. So I think it's a good one. Would you say that he is the most prominent ECW original still to go into the Hall of Fame?
I would say so. Yeah. I mean,
Balls Mahoney.
I would definitely say there's a lot. Oh, God rest his soul. God rest his soul. What a guy he was. What a guy he was. What character he was.
Can he be our next Christmas special?
The man's a legend. He tried to chat up Kelly. I mean, what a guy.
That's true.
That took a lot.
I would call
that took a lot of balls.
No pun intended. I'd call that the third best match on the December to Dismember pay-per-view. Him versus Mike Knox.
I watched that main event recently.
Yeah.
It's on the WWE Network currently, and the whole they've got a big Lashley thing going on.
Right.
And I watched it, and it's like this match is okay, and then it gets down to like the last. They start eliminating people, and it's like, oh no, this is bad.
Well, Jack Graves just put this in Bellas for Hall of Fame 2021. I mean, that's happened. That's happening, Jack.
The Bellas are in the 2020 part of it.
Unless he means like
Jack, we're not arguing. They're going to be in
it. unless he means like Mama Bella, you know, maybe their brother. I don't know. You know,
I don't know. Steph Farabella's works for WWE again.
That's true, but I'm not having it on my list. Alan said didn't they go in last year? That's the one time I'll agree with Alan Laurie. But my first pick to go in, somewhat controversially as well. You've went for ECW guy. I'm going for a WCW guy. I'm going for one of the greatest general manager in the history of WWE, Mr. Eric Bischoff, Uncle Eric himself. Stephen, how can you have a Hall of Fame without the guy who took Vince McMahon to the limit, you know, who reinvigorated the general manager position in WWE, who innovated it, who was there for such a long time? And Stephen, talk about guys they want to keep away from AEW. I know they fired him, but, you know, maybe say, Eric, here's a Hall of Fame place for you. You know, maybe don't go and do inner circle segments again, son. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, Bischoff's an interesting one. As you say, he goes and does segments in AEW, and then he goes on his podcast and goes, "Oh, AEW's done this wrong." It's like, you were just on there last week.
I didn't like that segment.
No, I think it's a great shout. I mean, if you look at historical points in, you know, wrestling, you know, it's Bischoff joining the NWO, taking the charge to Vince McMahon. I think it's a really, really strong shout. I mean, you'll hear on next week's feature show on the final year of WCW, since our central panel this week barely plugged it. I'm going to plug it here.
They think it's about WCW. I think they gathered that.
WCW, subject not named. David recorded it 2 weeks ago.
Class.
And we talk about Bischoff and Russo stuff there, but it's not as good there. But we talk about how Bischoff, as a sneak preview, Bischoff tried to save the company. And I think that's a big thing in wrestling. He's synonymous with that company. Yeah. You think about guys like Flair, Sting, those guys that wrestled, but Bischoff's a firm place in there, I think, as well, David. And I think, as you mentioned, his general manager stuff, I mean, the stuff that they did very early on in that one, mate, it was him and Stephanie going at each other, trying to one-up each other as well. You know, it's fantastic. You know, he does a lot of great stuff. His stuff with Austin is brilliant.
He's so smart, mate.
So underrated.
Do you remember when he drafts Heyman?
I guess I'm not working for you, so I quit.
It's amazing. Right, it's so good. Before we move on to your next one, Stephen, Jack Graham has clarified he means all the Bellas, every Bella, back to back. Give them both rings. So, who's your next one? Speaking of Bellas, do you have a tag team maybe?
I do have a tag team, yes, and one tag team close to many of our panelists' hearts. I say many, maybe like 2 or 3.
The Kernans.
No, the Kernans, definitely the Kernans. I'm going to go for Demolition.
Oh.
You think of tag teams in the late 80s, early 90s, you've obviously got the likes of the Heart Foundation, the Brain Busters, teams like that, the Road Warriors, LOD. Yeah. But Axe, Smash, I can't mind the other way his name off the top of my head now.
Crush.
Annoying me. But
Crush.
Crush.
Crush is like either that or the turtle from Finding Nemo. But anyway.
I'm sure it was Crush. Crush was the third one. But no, you look at them for nearly 2 decades, I think it was probably. Over 2 decades, the longest reigning WWE.
Yes. Yes, Scott.
No, for 2 decades, they were the longest reigning tag team champions of all time. Synonymous with that era of tag team wrestling. Where Vince actually took it seriously. Yeah. The colourful characters in the way that they had the face paint like LOD. Get it? Are you even like that?
Derek's profile pic with that new Mad Dog gives me life. By the way, I love it.
But I mean, one of the most iconic moments in early Royal Rumble history was when the two of them started at 1 and 2. So very, very memorable time there. I think the big thing is they probably would have been in by now, but they've obviously had issues with. They were part of that lawsuit.
So
we have had. Yeah, which is probably. But one of the things is we've learned over the years is never say never in that aspect of it. Bruno Sammartino, very vocal over the years of saying, I don't want to be in the Hall of Fame. And then eventually got in it.
Yeah.
Before he unfortunately passed away a few years ago. So there is that aspect of it that bygones can be bygones. And I think if you look at that era of wrestling, one of the only people I think still hasn't been in it probably deserves it is Demolition.
I 100% agree with you, and I don't know too much about Demolition. Like, it's outside the era that I watched, but even listening to our Legion of Doom show from a couple of weeks back, they were talking about LOD and the connection to Demolition and stuff like that. Big part of WWE history. Longest reigning tag champs until New Day came along. I think New Day broke the record only maybe 5-6 years ago. So that's a good one. I was actually going to move on to my tag team as a segue, but instead I'm going to go from one person who's sued WWE to another. I'm going to go to another. I'm going to go to Sable. Yes, that's right. Sable in WWE. Yes, you can. You can put more than one woman in the Hall of Fame a year. They are 50% of like the demographic. You know what I mean? Like, you can put more than one a year into their Hall of Fame. Sable, for me, listen, comes from an era where maybe the wrestling aspect of it wasn't as heavily featured, but in terms of getting eyes in the product, defining what WWF meant when it went attitude, in terms of being one of the first standout female stars, independent of anyone in the company, Sable deserves a place in history. She deserves a place in the Hall of Fame. And talk about both runs as well. I actually probably know her more just because of my age from the stuff she did was it Vince's assistant on SmackDown than the feud with Stephanie and all that. Not great, but entertaining, and she was also there. But like major things, Playboy cover, viewership went up when Sable came on infamously. Like Steven, Sable seems like one probably should have went in before now.
She's a bit of a Marmite type figure, I think it's fair to say, from the time. I mean, don't get me wrong. You talk about the late 90s, the kind of going into the Attitude Era, when she was with Mark Merrill, her then husband, and he was coming out. He was like, bump, trying to get himself pumped up, and they're all just going, Sable, Sable. They all wanted Sable. Yeah. I mean, she was so over at the time. It was unbloody believable. Horrible powerbomb in hindsight. But I mean, a bit of fantasy booking they could probably do, David, if you let me do something, is very early on in said wrestler's run, he was paired with Sable. So I think a way that they could bring Sable's current husband, Brock Lesnar, back is if they put him against a man who could win the WWE or the Universal title in SmackDown. Because Sable very early on was a tag partner for Edge back in the late 90s, SummerSlam. Why not bring Lesnar back as a husband? Put them in.
That
maybe
is interesting.
Heyman's with Reigns.
Yeah.
Because Paul Heyman's with Roman Reigns, so they could keep Lesnar away and they could put Lesnar with Sable. I mean, let's get me wrong, that could either go really good or it could go absolutely horrendously.
I think it sounds insane. We all know that Edge is no stranger to storylines that involve, real life relationships and couples, and so I think it'd be.
They could bring Beth back in as well. They've got plenty of potential.
Beth Phoenix. Whenever Beth Phoenix is on screen, she's just the best. I love Beth Phoenix more now than I ever did. I think she's brilliant. But let's have Brock and Duck stable, because I want Sable, just so I can see if he can actually speak for an extended period of time. Do a speech. I want to see Brock do a speech. Stephen, we'll go on to your next one. Is it Savio Vega or is it not Savio Vega, as Scott is suggesting here?
It's 100% not Savio Vega.
Unlucky, we need to wait another year, Scott.
If Savio Vega can't go into the Hall of Fame before D'Lo Brown, not a chance. And D'Lo Brown's in TNA, so he's not going to be.
He's not going yet. He's not going yet.
I'm going to go. I'm saving my big pick to last, but I'm going to go with a guy who I think could have been much bigger than he actually was as a star. But I think what he actually did in the 90s, he's a great kind of secondary type Hall of Fame pick. Is not a main guy. He was a WWF champion at one point. Main evented WrestleMania in 1997. The Millennium Man, Psycho Sid. Sid Vicious.
Nice. I like it. I'm a big fan of it. It's shocking to me that Sid's not went in, considering when was his most recent appearance on Raw that you can remember?
Raw Reunion or Raw 1000, that type of one. Because he had the stuff with Heath Slater. He was part of that whole angle.
Because he wrestled Heath, he had a one-on-one match against Heath in the lead up to that show. If you remember,
yeah, it was kind of it was something, because if you listen to the WCW show next week, we talk a lot about the injury that Sid gets in 2001, which horrible leg break that he gets in that one. She'd never bloody walk again. So the fact he even had a wee match with Heath was amazing. But what I love about Sid is I love his entrance music. It's so creepy. It's so eerie. Da, 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 da. Yeah. Oh, it's great.
It's good.
I mean, don't get me. He got that popular in '96 that he's in Survivor Series fighting Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels in '96, for the world title, and the crowd are baying for Sid over Shawn Michaels.
That's mental.
This is Shawn Michaels at that point in time was unbelievable.
Crazy,
that match with Undertaker in '97 WrestleMania was crap. I'm not going to lie, but
but it's not really about work.
Larger than life figure though.
He was coming. Do you think Sid gets overlooked because he came in as a big guy, traditional big guy, at a time when it was moving more towards the new generation sort of work rate? Do you think that's maybe where it gets kind of lost a wee bit?
Yeah, in a way, kind of. I think because that was the point in time where that type of stuff was starting to come in more. I mean, he did have an early run in the 90s, but I think he actually sold really badly then, because he was the guy who faced Hogan at WrestleMania, where everybody in '92, where everybody wanted Flair.
Yeah,
everybody wanted to see Hogan Flair for the world title, but instead they went Macho Man Flair, and the main evented was Sid Hogan.
Yeah,
so not really the best for him and that type of stuff though. But
well, listen, I don't want to cut you off there, but that could be a topic that comes up in a feature show coming up. WrestleMania matches that should have happened. There could be something that's discussed. Maybe a wee cheap plug for that one. You're talking about acts who never got their due, Stephen. Acts who have been great for a long period of time but didn't get it. I have to agree with Mr. Alan Laurie. #Regal for Hall of Fame 2021. I would like the NXT General Manager William Regal in this year.
He's a man.
Such a man. What a song.
I loved that on Central yesterday. Was it Grant that brought it up? It was amazing. I was in stitches.
It was such a great tune, but I hated him, Stephen. I hated William Regal when I was I first met Regal. I met him, didn't meet Regal. I've never met William Regal, just to clarify that. But my first exposure to William Regal was he was in Booker T's King's Court. And I remember my uncle bought me the Great American Bash 2006 on DVD, a very specific pay-per-view, right? and Lashley was injured. He was meant to defend the US title that night. Instead, they had a one-on-one match between Finlay and William Regal. And if you haven't seen this match, it's an utter hidden gem. It's the first time.
Solid.
It's the first time, Stephen, that I got exposed to like technical wrestling. They spend, I think it's like a wrist lock they do against each other, and that's like the first minute or so of the match. It's just them like wrist locking and trying to do strength. And we put his stablemate and King Booker's Court Finlay in there too.
I don't think anybody would argue with that either, to be fair.
No, you could even have like my scenario for dream booking Hall of Fame. Have Finlay induct Regal this year, have Regal induct Finlay the next year. Because to me, they're two guys of the same mold. You know what I mean? Came up at a similar time, similar wrestling style, similar levels of respect. And the main thing I want Regal in for, Stephen, what he's done for the younger generation. I heard about his work in NXT, heard about what he's done. One of the best general managers up there. Same thing with Finlay, you could argue. You've heard the work he's done for the women's division and trying to improve the women's division even since like the early 2000s. So interchangeable between the two of them, but two, picks that would go in, for me.
My early exposure to William Regal was in 2000 when he came in as the commissioner of WWE.
Yes.
And he was literally Vince McMahon's arse kicker.
literally.
Oh my God. But and it was the facial expressions he made. He was very unlikable, but you didn't really appreciate him, I think, at that point for the technical wrestler that he was. But as things went on, he was kind of solidly about there, and the stuff that he was doing in the ring was great. I mean, I think the current generation of fans would appreciate him even more if you've never watched. I keep going back to WCW, but the point where he faced Goldberg and he would not let Goldberg squash him, I think everybody would look back now and be like,
yes, what a great guy. What a guy. Listen, before you give your last pick, I'm going to do mine first because yours is objectively just a bigger pick than mine. So I'll let you finish the show. But my last pick is my tag team pick. Doing Ross's retro review episodes like a year or so ago, like there were some things in the Attitude Era I obviously missed. One of the things I did miss and I became very much aware of and very much a fan of and have more appreciation for was how over Too Cool were in the Attitude Era. They were getting the biggest pop of the night on any show that I watched. I think 2 or 3 of the shows I watched, they opened the show like on those occasions. They were so over and so entertaining as well. And Rikishi's already in the Hall of Fame. Deserved spot, probably a more prominent main event run, singles career, etc., etc. But Scotty 2 Hotty and Grandmaster Sexy need in that Hall of Fame. They are like the last of the Attitude Era teams that they can put in right now that are not in there. Too Cool in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, David, I think you're selling the Mean Street Posse very short there. I mean, come on.
Pete Gas 2022, baby.
I mean, the sweater vests.
Yes, on point. But Too Cool, can't argue with that, really, can you?
No, I think what you say is their act in 2000, that point in time. I mean, obviously, Rikishi was a larger-than-life character. He added that extra bit to them, but they still had to play their part in it, And they're just so entertaining. If you look at them when they first came in, I mean, they were, I remember about 97, 98 or something, I think it was they first came in before the Too Cool Act was established. Nothing polished, but then they just start dancing about, I mean, come on, Scotty got the worm over.
Amazing
come
stuff.
On. What would Otis be doing if the worm wasn't there?
Nothing. Just being angry, because apparently that's his new character now. But we've been very positive. Let's not get any Otis criticism. I have Too Cool, but Stephen, who's the last pick? Who are we putting in our Hall of Fame this year?
I'm going with it because there's a lot of talk that he's actually fully stepping away from his in-ring action. I mean, I know he had a match with Randy Orton, a match on Raw a few weeks ago, but I'm going to go with Uncle Paul, Triple H. Yeah. I think it's probably, if the talk is that he is fully stepping into his backstage role, he's not doing the part-time appearances. I mean, I know there's a I know AJ wants them at Mania, apparently.
Really does, apparently.
With 4 weeks to Mania, and that's not set in, so I'm not convinced about it yet. But if there's an easy Hall of Fame induction, it's either him or Vince. Let's be brutally honest with you, because he can just go, "I'm going in." Okay, but his career just dictated. You know, I mean, a lot of people would criticise his running. 2003, 2004 type points, but in a way that he just kind of. But he has had a consistently great quality career, and I think the way it kind of started out, was 95. That gimmick, the Paul Levesque type of it, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, obviously
the aristocrat,
Triple H.
The aristocrat.
Oh, it's so bad. I remember they had a match with Duke. Was it Duke the Dumpster Droese?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a Hall of Fame induction if I ever had one.
Get him in, repeat gas, baby. Get him in there.
But he did a great job of transforming himself, became the champion that he was, Evolution, DX. I mean, the DX is in, but it'd be quite fitting, I think, if him and Batista go in the 1 year. I think that'd be quite a nice thing.
Batista would love that. Because Batista has a hard-on for Triple H. There's no other way of putting it. He loves the man. Ross Cumming has an interesting shout. Earthquake.
Oh, get the Repo Man and everything in there as well. The early 90s, There's so many for that era you could put in. What's his face? Bastian Booger. He has a place in the Hall of Fame. Mantor. All these guys.
Jesus Christ!
You can start naming them. That guy, Damien Dementor that faced Undertaker at the first Raw. Get him in there.
I know Dave was just trying to remember Ruthless Aggression people this week, but he started bringing up Luther Reigns and Deuce and Domino. I was like, imagine Deuce and Domino in the Hall of Fame. Oh man!
I mean. There was a thing on Twitter about Kenny Omega that his leather jacket. It was like he was having more Deuce vibes than he was the guy he was trying to honour.
The only thing I'd say about Triple H is maybe 4 or 5 years, just because the DX induction was so soon. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I was trying to think of a big marquee name.
Yeah,
and. If you look at big marquee names, Undertaker's obviously something you could throw in, but I don't think they would put him in just yet, because I'm sure. Is it next year it's in Texas? Next year's in Texas, yeah. The other name, Kane's the other name I was thinking of, but I don't think they put Kane in before Taker.
Could do the same year as Taker. Could do the same year. Could
potentially. I mean, if I really wanted to go bold, I could have said CM Punk. That would have been something.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
That'd be great.
Can you imagine? That would be insane. And also, obviously, Dwayne, but Hollywood for Dwayne, I think.
Yeah. I think they kind of know where they're going to put all these people in, I think, as well. Yeah. I mean, plausibly, I know he's only just jumped, but plausibly, the Big Show apparently left in really good terms. They could easily put the Big Show in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the Big Show is the lead face on this Dark Elevation show. So I think maybe put them in the Hall of Fame as a direct. It's more. It'd be different if he just kind of showed up and was on Dynamite.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's kind of the face of this show, it's maybe just advertising that show too much. I mean, obviously, if Shaw and Vince have left on really good terms, then that's great, because Shaw was there for 20 years,
Sure.
He is going to go in eventually, Shaw. It's just when.
There's no other.
Can I still call him Shaw?
I think so. I'll call him Big Show till I die, but I don't think there's any other main event players. Like I was thinking maybe Lex Luthor earlier on, Lex Luger, sorry, not the Superman villain, the wrestler.
That'd be amazing.
Clark Kent for the Hall of Fame.
Why not? RoboCop was in WCW. Let's put him.
Well, that's the thing I was going to ask you about. Like, just to quickly end off, celebrity wing. Like, who would we go in for a celebrity wing? Bob Barker.
Again, I would He's been in. He's in, I think.
Is
Bob
he?
Barker.
Is Bob Barker in?
I'm sure he's in there.
Oh, class.
I'm sure he's in already.
Oh, that's great.
I would say Hugh Jackman's a decent shout. He had that good stuff with Dolph Ziggler a few years ago.
He did.
Again, I would have said Shaq until recently.
Until recently.
I'll not say Shaq now.
Is Maria Menounos in? Is that a thing?
No, I don't think she is in, but she would not be a popular choice. She would not be a popular choice.
I really want it to happen because of that. I get it, guys.
Booed out the building.
I get it.
she get booed out the building at the first Women's Royal Rumble because she announced it. Clearly, everybody wanted Lillian.
Aye.
Let's be brutally honest.
There's another one.
It's like, here's...
You know, Lillian, Tony Chimmel.
What? Get Mike Yoda in. Mike Yoda.
Yeah.
Deserves it.
Did he not get... Is he not left, though? He's been saying some stuff. Is he not?
Has he been saying stuff?
I
know he refed at AEW recently.
He had a go at Mark Carano, I think. Mark Carano put him in there for his Total Divas work.
Oh, no. Charles Robinson, I know he's still refereeing, just for the run alone.
Just for the beef with Ryan Gallagher. You want to set up a WrestleMania match with Charles Robinson and Ryan Gallagher?
Bring it on. Ryan's ballsy. He'll take on anybody.
Nice. I like it. But we'll end off there, Stephen. Thank you for coming on for the conspiracy theory. Alan Laurie, before we go quickly, says Hugh Jackman is a great shout. When are we next going to see you? You're on Central next week, aren't you?
Yes. Obviously, there's a feature show next week.
The WCW.
The final year of WCW. We see myself and Andy Mitchell back for the first time in a while. We talked the final year of WCW. There's so much guff to talk about on that one. We talk plumbing, human torch matches, Judy Bagwell in a pole matches. You know,
that's exciting.
Any sort of matches. Tank Abbott ragdoll and a commentator. You know, Courtney Cox gets a mention. It's all in that one.
I love Courtney Cox. Monica forever. Gotta love her.
I'm on Central next week as well. Nice. You know, Central, great stuff. Loads of stuff to talk about, always on Central. We're in WrestleMania season, David.
We are.
Plenty to talk about.
We are. Don't forget, check out everything else on this YouTube channel. Book It Final with Yourself will be coming up soon. You versus David Hockney. That'll be fun.
Oh, I can't wait. Can't wait to beat his ass like I beat his ass all the time. Every single thing. He's never beaten me at anything,
Well,
can't think of anything he's beaten me.
I'm impartial. I need to be impartial, but I'm not impartial about. Go check out Saturday Draft Live because every week they've had to say that I've been top of the table recently, and I can tell it kills them. It's brilliant. Anyway, I will catch you all later. It's goodbye from me and from Stephen.
See you later.